All right, take two. I think it's working. If not, it's at least recording, and we'll put it up later.
Are we real this time?
Well, are we real? I mean, I think we're real. Most days. Hey, it is actually working. All right, we're just behind. Anyways, hey, welcome to Midweek Motivation. Real
Another
conversations. Another episode. Oh, this might be another episode. It does explain why nobody was putting in the chat, like what I said to put in the chat. That was fun. That makes sense. But hey, welcome to Midweek Motivation. If you're not already in our group, you can text the word motivate 540-900-3838. That'll put you in our group. We'd love to have you. There's probably, last time I looked, there was like 78 people in that group. That could be wrong because, me and numbers aren't friends. I'm the reason God invented calculators. So, yeah. Man, I want you to know I just stopped myself from a really long rabbit trail just now. I want you to know that's what that pause was. That was a mental decision to not go down the rabbit trail. So
I got another one for you.
Yeah.
You know how you say real conversations with real people about a very real God?
Uh-huh.
We need to add a Pastor John pointing thing with graphics.
Hudson asked me the other day, he said, what's that song that Pastor John likes to dance to? He did this. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Glorious Day. Of course.
He's tried throwing it on a couple others, but not successfully.
Nothing's better than that. And that will always be one of my favorite moments in worship here at Parkway is at his celebration when, everybody just started doing it. And everybody in the building caught on right away. So the worship team did it and then everybody in the building started doing it. Oh, your dad's watching.
Hi,
How
Dad.
sweet. Oh, that's so sweet. Nice to have somebody proud of you. That's cool. At least I'm assuming he's proud of you.
Wow. Wow.
He's your dad. He definitely is. He kind of has.
Just kind of said that you weren't proud of her.
Well, that's not what I meant.
Kind of went around the way to say that you're not proud of her.
This is not how I thought it would go. Having my wife on the show, I thought this would be like, I'm going to have my wife on the show and make me look cool.
Do I need to sit in between you?
Maybe.
I mean, she tried to sit all the way over there. She walked in and she started to sit over there. It's like, I mean, I do kind of smell, in fairness. I was outside for a little bit. But anyways, if you're wondering why we're so late, we started and then it wasn't working. So then we restarted. So you're getting the second restart.
You guys missed a great first half of the show.
It was a great first half that you'll never see.
Much kinder, much less scattered.
It was much kinder, but I'm back now. Hey, Benny. Hey, Michelle. Hello, father-in-law. Thank you for being proud of your daughter. I'm proud of her too. She's wonderful. There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Is that a good recovery?
Saved it.
Did I save it?
Saved it.
Thank you.
Back on track.
Right? There's candy over there if you want some candy. Anybody? Gentlemen, candy. And you guys, you can't see this, but there is a whole fridge and there's candy like right off there, which got featured in a couple episodes back. Speaking of episodes, I forgot what I had started with because it was good. This is the final episode of season 2, and next week starts season 3. So what I'm curious is if viewers, listeners, people in internet land, how many episodes we've done in this season. You guys know because I put it in the notes, and you guys looked at it at least twice now. Now that we had to restart, now you guys had time to actually look at the notes. But put in the chat how many episodes you think we've done this season, right? So if it helps, the season started in August last year. So it's actually kind of a long season. Yes, he's proud of you. He said it right there. Just in case you're wondering.
If anybody gets it right, we'll give them this box of hot tamales
that nobody has opened yet.
Nobody's eaten.
Or give them the last of the gummy clusters that are in there. Yeah, we're terrible about giving things away. But yeah, this is the last episode of season 2. Next week we're starting season 3. So last week we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Hopefully won't do that this week. We'll see how it goes. But we did talk a little bit about Night for the Nations in our first go around. We just finished Missions Week. If you're not familiar with that, go back and watch both services from the 11th and the 18th and from the 25th. Watch those as our Missions Week services. Great times there. Just good services. Even Dustin, man. Even Dustin was good, right? What a surprise!
Good thing.
All right.
'Cause we got 6 months off.
It's like we pay him to be good or something. That's weird. But yeah, go check those out. Great services. You'll get to hear a little bit more of the heart of Parkway and about missions and everything. So speaking of missions, we did get to celebrate Night for the Nations, and I'm going really quick because we already did this once. We celebrated Night for the Nations, and if you couldn't be there or if you haven't seen any of the pictures, I want to show you this one here. So this is taken by our friend John Brunk, good friend of the show and new staff member here at Parkway. Shout out to John Brunk. This is what it looked like kind of as the night was ending. Great view, the sun going down. You can see some people worshiping in there. Cody's off to the right somewhere. Did we say right?
Yeah.
Did we
but
figure out right?
It's left for us.
That way, yeah. This way, towards me. We're all backwards. I don't have a career as a weatherman, I've decided. But, I mean, great time in worship. We had a dance team that was there. I had a group from Church of the Holy Spirit was there, led by our friend, Pastor Steve Henderson. And then Living Lyrics featuring our own Hannah Moore as well. Just a great time. Mm-hmm. You know, when our band was playing, we started right at 5 o'clock and the sun was still up and people were in line for tacos, which were delicious, which we found out Cody got the very last taco. Was it not delicious?
It was so good.
I can't remember. What was the name of that place?
No
I want to
idea.
give him a shout out because it was delicious.
So good.
If you know the name of the...
We can find it.
Ty, how did you figure that out? Way to go. That's pretty close. Ty, you're really close. You're wrong, but you're really close. Ty gets 47.
You're the least amount of wrong you can.
You are you're about as close to being correct as possible. But yeah, it was a great time. We're looking forward to next year. A little bit different setup than we did last year, and I think universally everybody's kind of agreed like that's how we do Night for the Nations from now on.
Yeah,
that was much better. Were you here for Night for the Nations?
I was not. It was the first one I missed, and had some sickness in the house. But I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I've recommended moving that up to the top of the mountain for several years, and
nobody listened
to no avail.
Just nothing.
And now, they waited a couple years, and now it's somebody else's idea, not mine. So
well, you didn't come.
So.
Well, it was a great idea. I'm so glad that you had that idea. That was wonderful.
The sun was cooking my neck at 5 when we were on.
Yes, you were right there in the heat.
You didn't have an open. You didn't have the enclosed drum booth, did you?
No, thank
okay.
you.
No, we would have had roast Cody after that.
Put me on a taco.
Yeah, right. Yes, the tacos were delicious. It was just a good time. So I'm glad we were able to do it. Glad the weather was great, and it was cool too. Well, everybody was cool except for Cody. had the heat just cooking right on the back of his neck. Yeah, John, we finally made it in. Finally got your picture in there. That was a good time. So if you missed it this year, don't miss it next year. It'll come back around the same time or so. And now I should probably look at the notes because some other things I'm supposed to announce. I get that off there. I did. New sermon series starting this week. The Outsiders. Put in the chat if you've actually seen that movie, because I've never seen this movie. Oh, I should probably clarify how many episodes. Ty, you're so close, right? So
You went the wrong way.
If you don't include today, then Ty's
He was
correct.
right. Yeah.
If you don't include today, Ty's correct. So total in this season, there's 48 episodes.
Which
right?
means we missed 4 weeks for something.
So we cut at least one at Christmas. There was one where
4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of July. There was one
weird day.
Carly was sick and I was out of town, and there was another one I can't remember what it was, but we've missed very few. And I was counting it up this morning. I look at that.
Thanksgiving.
Probably Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Wow. It really hit me. Like, we do this every week, and I didn't realize how much this was. Like how many episodes we'd actually done.
So it sounds like our seasons correlate with our church year.
Oh, gee, what are the odds of that? Yes, that is exactly what it is. Which this one, we probably should have ended actually in July because we started in August, but I wanted it to get on the church year. So starting next church year, which starts September 1st, starts season
Sunday.
3. This Sunday, right? What a good way to start the new church year, on a Sunday. How cool is that? So Ty, you get points for being close enough. Of course, there's no prize, but you get points, right? So way to go, Ty.
Well, you can have the hot tamales.
Right?
You can have them.
And nobody wants.
Ty, come see me Sunday. I'll get you those hot tamales. But a couple things coming up. The Outsiders, new sermon series, new church year, kind of a new season for our church. If you've been around Parkway, you kind of know what's going on there. But there's a new season for our church. I'm excited for it. It's good stuff. Dustin's starting this new series called The Outsiders, based on a movie called The Outsiders from the 80s, which I'd never heard of and never seen. Do you have any idea who's in this movie?
Is that the one with Mark Wahlberg and
He might be one of them, but like we're talking
I'll
like
do some research. real
Ralph
quick.
Macchio, Tom Cruise,
The
is in
Karate
it.
Kid?
The Karate Kid. This is before the Karate Kid, right?
The Karate Baby.
Yeah, so make sure you're here. It's going to be a good time. If you've ever seen The Outsiders, go ahead and put your favorite quote in the chat. I'm curious. We're probably going to watch this movie this weekend, by the way. So, because I've started
I was
looking
way
at
off.
who all's in it. It's crazy.
Starring C. Thomas Howell, not sure who that is, Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Diane Lane, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, and Leif Garrett, L-E-I-F.
Leif Garrett.
Leif
Yeah.
Garrett.
Kind of a who's who of like 80s movies, like heroes. But yeah, all that's coming. That starts this Sunday. Also coming up in September, in the evening is Vision 24. In the past, we've called it Local Church Conference. If you've been around church for a while, it's kind of like a business meeting, but it's not really fair to call it that. Because that's not really what it is. So you're going to get to hear a lot of the kind of the new direction for Parkway, which we keep saying new direction, and really we're just going to continue doing what Parkway has done for the past however many years and just reaching lost people. We got some new ways we're going to do it, but it's the same old goal, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to hear more of that. You're going to hear from Pastor Dustin about some of the things we've accomplished this year and things we want to do in the future. So
We get to vote on a couple things.
We get to vote on a couple
As a
things.
church congregation.
Members only
Which is really
Yeah.
cool,
for the
I
voting.
think.
I learned.
And Parkway does what Parkway does best
Mm-hmm.
at LCC or Vision is we feed you.
Yeah.
which
We
is
do feed you.
I thought he was gonna say
cool.
worship.
Yeah.
Thought he was going to say worship.
Yeah, I mean, he went with food,
I
but
went the
you know,
other direction.
we know why one person's on stage and one person's on the board. So that's just the way it is. All right, everybody has their strengths. But yeah, don't miss that. If you are a member, technically you're required to be there. That's the dirty little secret. You're technically required to be there if you're a member, but you get to vote on some things, get to make some decisions. But it's going to be a good night of fellowship, good night of worship together. So make sure you don't miss that. I'd tell you the time, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. 6 o'clock? Is that what it is?
Sounds about right.
It's in the evening. Go to the website. You can find it there. But that's Vision 24. There's other things. We don't have time to cover them all right now because we got to get into our topic. And today, to kind of cap off this season, which I really didn't realize till this morning that it was like the end. I thought, man, I should have thought of something better. So the end of season 3 will be like much more fanfare than the end of season 2.
And we got to hold the expectations down so season 3 just seems that much better.
I could definitely do that.
We weren't sure we were going to get canceled.
Right. I mean, apparently we've been on the.
And there was a writer's strike.
There was a writer strike. Yeah, we've been on the air for a long time now and haven't got canceled, so I think we might be all right. But today we want to kind of talk through what it is to be in God's presence. And when you say it like that, it sounds like this big lofty thing, and it always makes me think of like, you got to be in a monk, and I got to shave my head, which I, did anyway. So I guess I'm already halfway there. You got to wear the robes and all that stuff. But not like the cool kung fu monks, like the monks that like took a vow of silence and things. And maybe that's what you think of too, but that's not exactly it's not just what being in God's presence is. Like certainly that's a way to do it. But what got me thinking about this in the past, we listened to it all in a week, right?
2 days for me.
Well, yeah, 2 days for you, but you're good at listening to things like that. And, you're more focused than I am, but we found this book. It's kind of been on my radar for a long
Turn
time.
that off.
That's all right. It doesn't matter. We found this book. It's been on my radar for a little while. I've been wanting to read it. And it turns out you can rent library books like on your phone and audiobooks for free. There's ways to do it. It's super cool. So I've been listening to this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is just a great title, right? So it's by a guy named John Mark Comer. Fair warning, not everything in his book I agree with, right? Some of his politics are very different from mine, but most of his theology is really good. So great book. You should definitely read it or listen to it like I did. In fact, it was so good that after I listened to it, I decided I need to actually like read it and look through it. So I'll probably just skim it since I already read it, but already listened to it, which I think counts.
Did you
for the
know it?
I think it
We're not
counts.
going to go down that rabbit hole.
I'm
but
going to count
does
it.
Not count to listen to a book.
Oh, I'm for sure going to count it.
It's like watching a TV, like watching a movie based on a book and saying, "Yeah, I read the book."
It counts if you turn on the subtitles, because then you read.
I read the movie.
I read the movie. Yeah, it's 2024. It counts.
I get it.
But excellent book by Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Excellent book. And so we both just finished it this week. And we just want to talk through it a little bit. Not a whole lot, but kind of the big idea of kind of my big takeaway from the book is kind of this overarching idea of is your busyness keeping you from fully communing with God? Right? So everybody around this table leads very busy lives, right? As evidenced by the fact that you don't see these guys all the time on this show because they have such busy lives, right? You got families, work, all this stuff going on. And that's the way a lot of us live our lives. Like there's a lot of busyness. And I think the most frustrating thing for me, and this is kind of my argument with the book, is when somebody tells you you're too busy and somebody tells you need to slow down, right? Most of the time, you look through things in your life and be like, well, what am I going to stop? Like, am I going to stop taking my kids to school? Am I going to stop taking my kids to church? Am I going to quit my job? Like, all these things, so many things in our life that keep us busy, like they're not bad things. And most of those things are probably very necessary, right? So maybe for some of us out there, there's stuff in your life that, and if there is, immediately, when I said that, like there's stuff in your life that's like, yeah, that keeps me busy and I don't really need it to. But just this whole idea, I won't do it justice. We don't have time to go through it all, but the entire idea of the book is finding ways to commune with God more deeply by getting rid of the busyness and the hurriedness of your life, right? I mean, so often we run from things just in our life, right? We run from things, from sun up to sundown some days. Like Monday, we were at church all day, or we were working church, school, same building. We were here all day from 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever time that was. And then we went to a soccer game, and then we ran kids home from the soccer game, and then we came back to church for a meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Which we had delicious Chipotle. Thank you, Steffi.
It was good.
And shout out to all of our wonderful life group leaders. That was wonderful. You missed some great Chipotle.
Maybe we do feed people best.
Yeah.
I'm not a life group leader anymore.
I did hear that.
I had your portion.
This guy's taken over our life group.
You've passed the mantle. Which I'd love for there to be a torch or an official mantle that we pass.
So what are we going to talk about this week?
1 Peter, right?
Just making sure you knew.
Glad you got that figured out.
Read 1 Peter, all 5 chapters.
But there's this quote from the book, and then we'll touch on a couple other things. So I know Courtney's got a whole page of notes, and we don't have that much time.
That's not a whole page. That's a whole book of notes.
That's okay. She copied it from the internet.
8 font.
And that's very... I don't know how you're reading that.
But this is a quote that really kind of stuck with me more than anything. And I'll tell you, this is kind of a book that I think you got to go over a couple times. And there's some concepts that just kind of have to marinate on you a little bit, like a good steak.
Getting into that, that's the biggest reason why I like physical books. Mm-hmm. Because you can go back and do it. With the audio books, you got to that's not the part.
Right, and you can't underline audio.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I found that I was pausing it to write things down in my notes app so I could remember them, like some of the quotes. I was like, oh, that's really good. So I hit back 15 seconds so I could write down some of those things that really stuck out to me. So now I'm excited to get my hands on the actual book.
And this is a guy, John Mark is a pastor in Portland, and he actually quit his job as a pastor because he was getting so burned out, right? I won't ruin it. It's a great story, but he actually quit. Now he's in ministry at the same church and life's good. He's gone through this kind of whole transformation, a little bit. But this is the quote that really kind of summed up the book for me, that I kind of held on to is, it's what you give your attention to is the person you become.
Amen. That's good.
And like I said, I didn't agree with everything he said in the book, but yeah, I mean, how true is that?
Yeah.
Like we always try to stereotype people like, oh, this guy's a hunter, this guy's a car guy, and all that kind of stuff. And like the reality is, like, what you give your attention to is who you become.
Absolutely.
Right? It's kind of like, in scripture, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is, or that's where your heart will be. Right. A little bit of Jesus there. Is it Matthew 6? Is that right? I should know that. I should know that. Somebody else should know that. But there's this verse I came across in Psalm 63 that I think kind of captures a little bit of what John is trying to push us towards, right? And kind of what I really think the goal for Christians and followers of Jesus should be when it comes to our communion with God. And let's see if this works. Oh, no. There it is. Boom. It totally worked. What a day. And I don't care what else happens the rest of the day. That's a good day right
you
there.
even got the little midweek motivation
Right? You
symbol
check that
there
out?
at the bottom.
I had that ready 2 weeks ago and it didn't work.
Love it.
Right? Yeah. I'm just going to sit and revel in things working well, which is probably not a good sign. But Psalm 63 says this way. This is, David, which there's a whole lot of this in the Psalms. So if you're ever like looking for something of like communing with God and what it looks like to commune with God, just read it.
That's what you get.
That's what I get
for looking at that.
I got too prideful in my own world and I ruined it. But Psalm 63 says, "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water." Like that's how deep David felt that he needed God, right? When I read that, I think about, when we think about our busy schedules and things, how often do we just fit God into our schedules and fit church into our schedules rather than me communing with God is my sole purpose. And I'm doing all of these other things around that, right? I don't know. Am I the only one? Am I crazy?
No. I mean, I think even David's saying it here. I mean, what do you think the reason for him saying in a dry and parched land where there is no water? Why do you think he said that? It's because in the sentence before that, he's talking about how he thirsts for God. He's not thirsting spiritually.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not thirsting physically. I mean, he's telling you, hey, there's no water and it's dry and it's hot here.
Yeah.
But I don't need physical water. I need spiritual water.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to find yourself earnestly seeking worldly things like this time of year, college football. Like you long for it all year. Or for me, hunting season. Like that's all I've thought about since May.
We've got text messages on my phone that will.
So, I mean, if you could just redirect a tiny portion of that energy to communing with God.
Yeah.
When I talked about one of the other things that I kind of highlighted in my mind or wrote down from the book was it says Psalms 23 does not say like the Lord is my shepherd, so I've got to run faster. It said shepherds rarely run. Like, no, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And it talks about that calming and that peace that he can provide. And so often we wear that busyness, like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm busy, but I'm good, as a badge of honor. And it's like, that's actually not a good thing. But we kind of put that as like, oh, I'm busy, so things must be going really well. But really it means we're probably doing too much and not focusing our time where we need to.
Yeah. I mean, what's more American than being busy?
Yeah.
Right? And
Absolutely.
That's the common response.
but-
Like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm busy, but we're good.
Yeah, running from one thing to the next.
And I don't know, I might be an outlier, but honestly, sometimes I don't think a busy season is such a bad thing. But I think that we have to remember to keep God's presence intentional in that busy season.
Yeah.
Okay, so, right now is kind of a busy season for me. The line of work I am, politically, everything's starting to steer up, and so we stay busy. But I try to intentionally, in my drives from meeting to meeting or place to place, listen to a podcast, spiritual podcast, listen to the Bible, something to that nature, just to try to be intentional about what I'm doing, to try to keep God in my presence.
Yeah, it's almost like a flip and a switch to change it from like, I have to go do my job, but while I'm doing my job, I'm going to listen to Scripture. And what if we flipped it to where it's like, hey, I'm going to be in the presence of God today. I'm going to be listening to Scripture, and I'm going to do that while I'm at work. I'm going to do that, and what if work was the thing that got in the way, right? Not like, oh, I have to stop work so that I can listen to Jesus and have some quiet time. Like, just like you said, like if that you're taking that time, like you're still working, right? And you still have to do your job. That you should probably be pretty aware, especially while you're driving and in the line of your work that you're in, right? That's a good thing. But I think it needs to be that flip of not, I need to try to fit in, these thoughts of God and communing with God while I'm doing these other things. It's, hey, I'm going to commune with God today, right? And I'm going to do this while I'm driving. I'm going to do this while I'm at work. I'm going to do this while I'm taking my kids to soccer practice, while I'm, whatever that is. There's this other book that I read way back in college, which I'm realizing is longer ago than I care to remember. But this is like, you should read this book too. It's a good book. But it's a book called The Practice of the Presence of God, which the title alone is worth just reading and meditating on. Just that idea of like, how do I practice the presence of God, which is really kind of what we're talking about today. But it's this, I want to say it was written in the 1600s, but it's a conversation that a guy had with a monk named Brother Lawrence. There's a whole lot to it. It's a whole.
The monk didn't take a vow of silence, though, if he was having
He did
a conversation.
not.
Right?
He did
Real
not.
one-sided conversation.
A lot of grunts and
Nods. Which is basically this show.
I mean, basically, there's some good things that happen in between there, but it might as well just be the grunts. But in that book, The Practice of the Presence of God, he's recording these conversations he's having with this monk, and he's got this quote that's kind of always stuck out to me. The way he says it this way: he says, "We should establish ourselves in a sense of God's presence by continually conversing with Him. That it's a shameful thing to quit His conversation, to think of trifles and fooleries." Right? So in the book, he kind of goes through this whole idea of like every moment, every waking moment, you should be thinking and meditating on God's presence, right? On who God is and what He's done for you. And that it should be a rare thing to step away from that, right? That's kind of the high goal that he set for himself, which, as a monk, that's part of the reason he is a monk, is because he's devoted himself to that. But it always caught me like, man, what if the thoughts about my day were what interrupted, my conversation with God, rather than conversations with God having to interrupt my day?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when I read that, that's kind of what you were talking about, is every waking moment I have, like, I have to do this, right? You got to eat and live indoors. You got to take care of your kids. You got to go to work. You got to do those things, right? And Scripture would never condone laziness and not work, right? Scripture has plenty to say about going to work. Yes, it does. Right. But that's what he's talking about.
Yeah. Colossians also says, work for God, not for man. Yeah. Right. And, not to get that wrong, like we actually do work for man, for the physical world, but the basis of why we're doing that work should be for God, and not for man. Does that make sense? So that it just brought me to I actually have that sign in my office to remind me about that almost daily. I mean, I don't follow it all the time, but as I should. But
it's so easy in this busy season that we're all in to, like, on the rare occasion you do find a weird time where you're like, we've got nothing to do. It's so easy to fill that full of junk and stuff that's not going to fill you up.
Yeah.
Or nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes okay.
Sometimes
right?
It's okay, but, Well, I think too that, and my family has fallen into this is, you get into these busy times, and when you have nothing to do, or you have so much to do, like church, Wednesday nights or life group or certain things like that are the easiest things to kind of get rid of to put more stuff in.
Yeah.
Where you go, I'm doing these things with the church, around the church. That's good enough.
Yeah.
It's I've caught myself saying that many times.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we fill our lives with a lot of good things, but I think the thing that's, at least for me, I think that's most difficult is when I do have time to myself, is how do I spend that time? Because for me, I'm an introvert, so I recharge when I'm by myself, and I love the times where there's nobody in the house and I have the house to myself and it's finally quiet for once, right? But what do I do? Like, as soon as I can, I flip on the TV, I sit there and I just turn my brain off, right? Yeah. And that, some days it helps me to relax, but the reality is that's time I should be stopping and taking that time and communing with God, right? There's nothing wrong with, turning your brain off and watch TV, right? Those are good things. But like, I'm missing out on an opportunity to really commune with God in that moment, right? Because I really have no excuse not to, right? So that's the thought I want to leave us with as we kind of close up this conversation, because I'm not getting cut off this week. While we kind of close up this conversation, and this is the way I put it. There might be a better way to put it, but this is kind of how my brain looked at it and put it to put words to it. But when you think about being in God's presence and how you can do that better, I think the first thing you've got to do is you've got to examine your life rhythms. Right. And we talked about a couple weeks ago, me and Carly were talking about rest, and like, man, you got to look at your schedule, because there are probably things that are inside of your control that are causing the busyness, right? There are things in our life that we can't control. Most of us can't control our work schedule or kids' schedules and things like that. But man, there are things in our life that we can control. Just like me, like I can control what I do in my downtime, right? There's a phrase in scripture, I can't remember where it is, but it's something effective, redeeming the time, right? And
I like that.
It's great. I'll figure out where it is. If you know where it is, put it in the chat. But something about redeeming the time because the days are evil or something like that. But just that phrase that's just a powerful phrase. Like, you have so many moments on earth, right, of life, and how are you spending that? But when I think about your life rhythms, like, what's your schedule like? What's the stuff built into your day that you have to do, right? And what are the things that maybe you can cut out, right? And maybe there are things that you can't. But like you said, how can you practice the presence of God
right
in the midst of that, right? Yeah. That's where I want to leave us today a little bit, right? Just leave it that thought, marinate on that.
I thought you said no cliffhangers.
Right? I mean, I do love a good cliffhanger. It's been a dang good season. Do you have anything else in that pile of notes that you want to share that'll add some more value? Because,
you've got
so
2 minutes.
One of the quotes that he actually was quoting Corrie ten Boom, and he says, "If the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy." So
wow.
often that's the times when we like, okay, you maybe not be tempted to do this or to do this, but if you're busy, what's the first thing that goes? Your quiet time, usually.
Yeah.
And that idea of like, shoot, like that's the most important part of my day. That's not the part I should let go, but that's often like, oh, I didn't have time to get to that today, when really that should be like we talked about with Pastor Carly, that first 15, like 5 minutes in the Word, 5 minutes in prayer, 5 minutes in worship. And being able to get up and do that, like even before the kids are awake, that's hard. Like I realize between us, we've all got like 11 kids. Like this is the multi-kids club right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
4, and 3 for you guys. So it's like, that's hard when you've got kids, but
I mean, somebody's got to grow the church.
It's rare that I have the least amount of kids anywhere.
yeah.
And I do at this table.
We're outnumbering you here, but like, and then for your kids seeing that's being a priority for you.
Yeah.
I was talking about that with our oldest, and I said, "Oh, I've been getting up earlier to read the Bible in the mornings." He goes, "Really?" He said, "That's really cool." So just seeing that impact, like that we can influence our kids in that matter too.
That's part of the reason, and I know it's a shameful reason, I guess, a little bit, But that's part of the reason why I try to intentionally do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids see that. And, my goal is that my kids don't have to intentionally do it like I do, that they just do it by instinct.
Yeah.
That's, that's kind of why I try to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just part of being a parent. You set that example. I mean, just same way, like you drive safely so that when you're in the car with them, I drive safely.
Somebody just got kicked under the table, I think.
Look, I'll be transparent. I got a ticket a couple weeks ago and I was going way too fast, but I didn't get a ticket for speeding. I got a ticket for not having my car inspected, which if this was an episode about grace, this is a great example of it. But I drive safely. It's been, you know how long it's been since I got a speeding ticket?
Cliffhanger. Cut the
Come
camera.
back. You're going to miss it.
Right? 2015.
Wow.
It's been a long time since I got a speeding ticket, right? But I deserved this one, and he was so gracious and let me off. But there was a point I was making to that. I don't remember what it was.
Setting a good example.
Yeah, setting a good example for your kids, right?
Well, and with your time, like, hey, we're not going to do that this weekend. Well, why not? Well, we're going to spend some time together as a family, or we're going to go. We've got a church event, so we're going to miss that birthday party, or we're going to miss this because church is a priority for our family.
Yeah, yeah, and that's your life rhythms, right? Our kids know that if it's Sunday, we're going to be in church. Like, if you're dying, maybe you can stay home, but if it's Sunday, we're going to be in church, and Sunday afternoons, we're going to be in life group because that's what we do. And they're still trying to understand it, I think, because I don't think they do, but they will eventually. So good show, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good to have the OGs back on today. Good to have my wife on today, keeping me honest and accountable. But thank you for a great season 2. Thank you for watching all 48 episodes. Crazy. Hope you're ready for season 3. We'll see you next week. Have a great week and stay motivated.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, when you're feeling down and motivated in the midweek, we got the guys here to make your life complete. Little John, Brandon, Cody, Carly, they're coming in to keep you motivated all week. New episode